Yo, what's up guys, the Insane Game Freak here to bring you a Pokemon in a video game discussion. So, Pokken Tournament, because there's a few things I've been wanting to talk about this game. And since the game comes out in March in Japan, it's a good time to talk about it. So let's do it, yeah. Okay, so Pokken Tournament got its Wii U confirmation, I think, back probably about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe. I think it was back in like August. August or September we found out that yes, it's coming to Wii U, and we thought it was anyway, but we really hadn't heard anything. So when it was confirmed, we still hadn't even seen Wii U footage. I think we've seen it since then, but it's kind of hard to tell because it almost looks the same. And if that's the case, then I'm very happy about that the game looks almost basically the same in terms of graphics. But there were a few things about it that I've been meaning to talk about. And back when I did that top 10 list with Sora-san, we were talking about Pokemon we wanted to see in the game. And that's because as of right now, when I look at the current list of fighters we have 12. In a franchise that has over 700 Pokemon, we have 12 fighters and probably maybe 12 supports, maybe. And that's really low. And then when you look at the characters we have for our fighters, one of them is a clone of the other. I feel like that's partially due to a few things, because I think we had heard that report that in one of the arcades in Japan, they took the game out because it wasn't performing well. And so a lot of us took that as, I guess the game isn't doing well. But the problem is, we've only heard that one report and haven't heard anything else. Like, there's been no other knowledge about Pokken Tournament doing bad except for that one arcade. So, but they also put the level of doubt in our minds that Japanese players weren't really flocking to it. And then when you see what it is, because Pokken Tournament really is just it's a weird 3D/2D fighter that is like it's a simplified fighter, which is probably one of the worst things a fighter can be. There's nothing wrong with simple fighters, and it can help bring people into the genre. But for hardcore fans, people aren't going to be playing Pokken. Sometimes the Pokken Tournament, probably its fan base is going to be pretty niche for a while, or niche. It'll be very niche for a while. And it kind of brings into the question about, well, what about the roster? Because the roster right now is only 12 characters. Well, that's including Pikachu Libre and including Dark Mewtwo. And the only reveal we've gotten is Sceptile, which was this month, I believe. It was either this month or was it? Yeah, I think it was either December or late November. We got that Sceptile reveal, and the game comes out in March in Japan. So you got 3 months, and it comes out mid-March. So it's in 3 months, how many more characters are they going to reveal? Now, granted, people think there are going to be more characters, and my God, I hope they are. But I'm curious to see. I feel like it's been, considering the game is coming out in less than 3 months, I'm like, well, I figured we would have heard something about how many characters in the game or something along those lines, that we haven't. And my question has now turned into if there are going to be any characters, how are they going to be released, or if there are any new characters at all. Especially with this looming thing in the back of your mind, thinking that the game didn't do well in Japan. Granted, we're only basing it off of one arcade, but still, the fact that it didn't do well at one arcade is the thing. Granted, we've never really heard about arcade performance for most of these games. Like when Tekken, Street Fighter, when those games came out in arcades, it's we didn't really hear about anything in the arcade because all of us were worrying about the fucking PC or console version of the game. But it's still a thing to bring up. But it also gets into a theory that I have for Pokken Tournament. Pokken Tournament is the Wii U's big Pokemon game. Now, unfortunately, if I were to go back in time and see, well, what can I relate this to? What can I relate? What was the last big Pokemon console release? Well, that would have been Battle Revolution on the Wii. For those who don't know, Battle Revolution is a really mediocre fucking Pokemon Stadium game that doesn't have as much content or the heart and soul. And on top of that, we haven't heard anything about any of the extra modes for Pokken yet. Pokken, literally, all we've heard is what we've seen, which is just its basic fighting. We don't even technically know if this thing will have online multiplayer. We know it'll have local, and people are still, and the tournament players are already mad about that because why? Because Pokken Tournament's current multiplayer is one with a gamepad and one with a controller. The problem is that the gamepad is wireless, and that's the big thing about competitive players for most of these games. They can't stand wireless controllers because there's input lag, and you're in an environment with a whole bunch of consoles and a whole bunch of wireless controllers. Shit's liable to get fucked up real quick, and that's gonna hurt Pokken's tournament scene. There's already a problem in itself, and my biggest fear is I don't want this to be an Ultra Smash situation. For those who don't know, an Ultra Smash situation was when Mario Tennis Ultra Smash was announced. It was like shown to be mediocre as fuck. Like the game looked mediocre as fuck when we first saw it, and then the months came, and literally the only thing that was revealed about it was new characters, and that was it. I think it was like new characters and the fact that the stages kind of changed. And that game ended up being a lackluster product. And also the fact that we don't have an American release date for a game that literally probably has barely any text in it. Hell, we don't even know that, like, if this thing's gonna have like a normal story mode, like a story mode, an arcade mode, and then like a fucking online battle mode. Like, we don't know anything about the game, really. We just know it's being ported. We got the Septile announcement, and we know there's a dedicated Hori controller for it. And this game is gonna have a very problematic issue if it ends up being, it's a Pokemon title. Like, I would think and to me it also feels like this game has a lot more effort put into it. So part of me believes this won't be a Ultra Smash situation, but because I still don't know as much about the game, my level of worry is still like up here, because I'm like, I need some mode announcements, I need like a confirmation of how many characters we're getting. Something we just need more shit, and then a lot of people are hoping that Nintendo at the very least makes an option to where you don't have to use the gamepad. I've noticed throughout this year and last year they've been trying to make a bigger online push for their games. I mean, you have Smash, Bayonetta had an online mode, fucking Mario Tennis online, even though it's pretty trash, it's still an online game. Fucking my brain cut off for a second. What the hell was I gonna do? Oh, Splatoon. I'm fucking stupid. And they've been trying to push Splatoon's tournament scene like a motherfucker. If anyone hasn't noticed, they've been really trying to push it. I feel like they're trying to push the online environment so they have a fan base. Splatoon has damn sure made them a viable online environment space. It's just that in Pokken Tournament, I feel like the reason why you play fighters is for online. Like, if Pokken Tournament doesn't have online, that'd be a fucking travesty. And I'm pretty sure it will. But the whole point is that when we boil down to it, it's like there's too much unknown with this game, and it actually brings up the whole thing about the character roster that I wanted to talk about. Because I mentioned Splatoon before, I wouldn't be surprised if Pokken Tournament had a Splatoon way of handling its releasing of characters. And the reason why I say that is because Splatoon's method has shown that shit works. That shit heavily works. And in a fighting game, and Smash has shown it works too, just for DLC in general. Whether it's free or not, DLC in general. Pokemon is a franchise that, like, Pokken Tournament could become a true side franchise in itself if it is handled properly. And it has the potential to be good, and I feel like it will be at least good. The problem, and granted, the only other problem with Pokken that we can't really talk about is the mechanics. And it's because it's a simplified fight. And I know they had that at the Pokemon Championships where they announced that Pokken was coming to Wii U. You saw a lot of tournament players playing it. And you kind of got to see some of the meta and the way people were playing. And it's like, I think there's an interest over here in the States for it. It just depends on whether or not they want to further that. And Nintendo's going to have to make steps to push it in that direction. So it kind of brings up, my question is more so, would you guys be cool with like a Splatoon way of handling characters? Because I don't think that'd be a bad idea. It also could add new stages. That's the other problem I've had. I think we've only seen like three or four stages. That's the other problem. Like, we've seen the Dark Mewtwo stage, we've seen like the farming stage, the city stage. I think we've seen like 4 or 5 stages, and I'm like, this game is coming out in March. You're porting this game over from the arcades to fucking console in like a 6. Well, no, technically Pokken's been out longer than that. There hasn't been that many additions to the game, and like even in the arcade version, the only major addition they got was fucking Dark Mewtwo, and I'm like, and I think some like Halloween themed stuff, and like because the roster, the other problem I have is that the roster is like really safe. The roster is so safe, it's stupid. Like the only two interesting choices in the roster I've seen so far is probably like Suicune and fucking Weavile, because those are non-traditional popular characters. Every other character they picked so far is a safe-ass choice, and my question then becomes, how more... And I feel like it's also because it's the first game, so they're not willing to take certain levels of risks, even though there are just certain Pokemon in here where you would just think it's common knowledge. Like fucking... We still don't have any of the Hypno top line, or the Tyrogue line. You tell me in a fighting game you haven't chosen at least one of the Hypno line to do? You know, Hypno Lee, Hypno Chan, Hypno Top, none of them motherfuckers. Like, the fact that the fighting Pokemon representation has been terrible so far really shocks me. Like, no fucking Primate. I think the only fighting Pokemon in the game is technically Mewtwo's, I guess, if you count Mewtwo's, like, mega fighting half form, and fucking, Machamp. Well, that seems kind of weak, doesn't? Like, to me, that seems really fucking weak. It's like, come on, guys. Like, there are other Pokemon you could be using. And so, part of me, I'm like half worried for this game and half interested. And I'm not like a super fighting buff. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I'm not someone who plays fighting games all the time. I may, if I ever get a PlayStation 4, I may try Street Fighter 5, because Street Fighter 4, for me, wasn't really what I didn't really get into it. And on top of that, the other additions, it just pissed me off, so I didn't touch it. I would like to try Street Fighter again, so. But I'm not like what I would call a super hardcore fighting game fan. And for the love of God, if they're going to be pushing the online scene, please fix that controller situation. That's not a hard thing to do. Just make it where you aren't forced to use the gamepad. Because, and I understand, listen, if that's an option for gamepad, that's cool. But you cannot do, if you want this game to flourish in the fighting game community, do not tie that shit down to the gamepad. Don't fucking do it! I think it's one of the reasons why Splatoon tournaments don't work as well. Because Splatoon is the same problem. It's a whole bunch of wireless shit. So you can't really do a local Splatoon tournament and it'll work as well. You know, with all the lag and shit. Granted, Splatoon is more of a shooter, and I guess Splatoon, because of the way Splatoon is played, you don't really, it's not as big of a deal, but Splatoon's metagame is going to hurt for that too. Wire controllers are always preferred. It's one of the reasons why Smash 4 is doing so well. I mean, I tell you right now, Smash 4 didn't have the GameCube option. I'm pretty sure so many people wouldn't play that game, it's fucking ridiculous. So I want this game to do well, and I want that, and you know, as someone who really, you know, I like tournament games, but I'm not fucking in love with it, where I'm like, oh my god, I need more tournament shit. Tournament helps maintain fan base loyalty. You know, people are going to get a PlayStation 4 just for Street Fighter 5 because it's fucking Street Fighter 5. It's Street Fighter. Fighting games can create brand loyalty. And it's kind of one of the reasons why Smash 4, and you know, you got the Splatoon metagame. It's like, dude, keep the Smash up, keep the Splatoon up, add this Pokken shit in here. Pokken could be good because Pokken is probably the most traditional fighting game you have. And it's still not as traditional because it's a simplified fighter that may or may not have some meta into it. I haven't really seen anyone talk about Pokken Tournament's meta, so I'm not totally sure how deep that shit gets. But, like, you can, like, because if you notice, there are certain franchises, like fucking DOA, that never really got into the hardcore scene. And I think it's maybe because of the way the game is played, even though you got Marvel 3 is played in tournaments. You got some fighting games that stick around in tournaments. And to have Nintendo have a more of a tournament scene would definitely help in an overall sense. But those are just some general thoughts and concerns and worries I have for the game, and I'm still excited for it. I think in March we'll find out, because it said I know in America it's coming out in spring, which means it's not that far behind, but I'm pretty sure Japan will still get it first. So I just hope they don't fuck that up. You know, you're trying. It doesn't make any sense to make a fighter and then like omit shit like this. To admit like to have these weird omissions, like it's gonna turn into DOA, because DOA, as much as like people like DOA isn't considered like a tournament fighter. Hell, technically, neither is Tekken, to be honest with you. Tekken's like somewhat recognized, and then you have people who just play the old school versions of a lot of games. Like fucking people who still play the older Street Fighter games over Street Fighter 4 and possibly Street Fighter 5. But you know, giving Nintendo a more Evo presence would help. There's like, it wouldn't hurt to have this game be pushed more as a tournament game. Because right now, it's feeling way too closely to like an Ultra Trash situation, and I don't want this to be Ultra Trash. Ultra Trash didn't have any fucking chance in hell, and even if it was a good game, it'd just be a good game. Pokken Tournament has the ability to cross over into the fighting game community, which to get people hooked into Nintendo games. You know, there are people who haven't played. There are people who play it like every once in a while Pokemon game. Most of these fuckers haven't played one since Generation 2. It'd be a good way of cross-promoting Pokemon. It's fucking Pokemon, for God's sakes. It's like one of the most approachable franchises in the world. Getting a fighting game to cross over, it'd be legit as fuck. Now, those are just my thoughts and concerns. Please leave yours in the comment section below. This has been the Insane Game Freak. Life's a game, play to win, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace off.